Welcome to The Most Mindset, where you'll hear real conversations about mindset, mortgages, and mastery for loan officers and originators who have outgrown being undervalued and underpaid. Here's your host, Michael Most.
Welcome, everybody, back to the next episode of The Most Mindset. I have joining me today, Bob Hilsby. How are you, Bob?
Good, Michael. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
You know, the best thing I always remember and love about your name is when you and I first met, which I'll have you tell the story in a moment, but you came across as Robert Hilsby. And I remember it showed up on my phone as Bob, Robert, Bob. And I'll never forget, you were like, well, Robert's my name, but Bob is what my friends call me. And, people say that from time to time, but now having known you for a few years at least, I think it's really true. And I'm proud to say that you're Bob to me in my life. Why don't we start out with how we met, a little bit of, your story, your background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, we should take it from the top. I originally from New York City. And, you were a name that was all over town, production wise. You had to know Michael Most for sure. There's no way to have not to. And then, I moved out here to California a couple years ago, and I was just looking to be around some producers, some people that, know the business, been in the business, someone like spirited New York kind of guy. And yeah, I looked you up, and we ended up meeting for lunch and had a really nice conversation.
Yep. So let's back up a second. So you were born and raised in New York, yes?
Yes, sir.
Let's just go through some just where it all begins kind of thing. Where were you born and raised? Like what town? You were in Long Island? Where were you?
Yeah, so born and raised Long Island, South Shore, Merrick, down by the beach, close to the water, Freeport, all that kind of nice stuff. I started my career out there, and then slowly migrated my way toward the city, New York City, Manhattan. And I was in the city for like 12, 13 years. So moved my business, toward the city, and yeah, the rest is history. Moved out here.
So let's start. Well, I'm really going even further back than that. So you're born in Strong Island, as we would refer to it, right?
Yes, sir.
Where guys, are built tough and definitely come up through the ranks. But you're a kid. What do you want to do for a living? You go to college or you don't go to college? What do you want to do as a living? And then maybe break into, so what was that aha moment where somehow you fell into mortgage? Was it by mistake? So first, let's start with what were you doing growing up? What did you want to be, right, before mortgage even entered your mind?
Yeah, great questions. I was always entrepreneurial spirited. I'm the paper guy, the cutting the lawn for the neighborhood kind of guy. I ended up doing some valet parking, but I was like running the valet parking. I was like 17 years old, just got my license. And then it was off to college. My mom was in real estate for many years. So that was always in my wheelhouse. And then during my college days, I actually did rentals to make money in real estate. I got my real estate license, and and then along the way, I kind of just from there switched over to, I'm like, hey, I don't want to, out stuff. So the guy that I was referring business to at the time, I ended up to go work for him.
Was there this great story or funny story of how that came to be? Because generally speaking, for me, my story that many people have heard before is I was going to law school, and then I met someone who said, hey, I have a job in a post-closing department. I learned the business as a reverse engineer in some ways. I saw what was being required for them to buy the loans and stuff like that. But I was just going to go be a lawyer. And then it was 2001, so sales, they told me just stay on as a salesperson. I was going to law school. And lucky for me, the timing was just the very, very beginning of the boom. Other people I talked to are like, oh, I was in a strip mall and I saw this guy and he's driving a Mercedes. And I was like, hey, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I do mortgages. You should come to my house, right? So did you have any of those funny aha moments when you first got into the business, or when you tried it? Was it temporary? What was, if you can go back to the mindset of Bob those many years ago, what were you thinking at the time?
Well, sure. I was very young when I was, started with real estate, and I did very good with the rental market. I was, making more money than my friends, and they didn't have any money. We were in college, but I had money. So that was great. And then I didn't Truth is, I didn't finish college because I started making money in real estate. So I just at one point, it's not funny. I wish it was, but like the guy that I went to go work with at the time, yes, he was very successful and that intrigued me. And I've always been interested in numbers. Like I'm a numbers kind of guy, like analytical. And I thought that I'd be better served in the mortgage space.
Yeah, and lucky for us, you are. So having that experience with your mom definitely must have played a role because she knew the industry, you knew how to work hard. I mean, that's impressive running, it sounds like a simple thing to do car valet and stuff like that, but there's a lot of organizational skill there and you're young and you're making money. So you definitely were a hustler from day one. So maybe walk me through the transition into, so the first place you're working for, as we all know, there's three different types of banks. There are the institution banks like Wells City Chase, where there's a branch on the corner. Then we have IMBs, known as mortgage bankers, where they put up their own money. And then you have the broker model, which is by far, I think we would agree, the best model of them all. But walk me through some of your history. Did you start in one, move to the other, maybe go back and forth between them? Give me some of those experiences. And in your humble opinion, which is most ideal for you?
Yeah, sure. Great question. Also, I started my career, with this other fellow that I was working with, as a, original gangster mortgage broker, yield spread premium kind of thing. And yeah, so I spent many years doing that, and I ended up getting my own mortgage broker license, and I had my own company right up until about 2008, and was not sustainable at that time. But yeah, I spent the beginning of my career just the first 30, 60 days. I wasn't even allowed to go out and sell anything because I had to learn my Fannie Mae guidelines. So I learned those things backward and forwards. I would be tested on them until this guy was comfortable with me getting out there. I was angry every day. I'm like, I want to get out there because I knew all these real estate agents from working in the business, and I knew the owners because my mother had some relationships there. And I was excited to get out, but it was one of the greatest things that I think that I ever did was those first 60 days not being allowed to get out there and sell, but learn those guidelines because everything branched off of that for the rest of my career.
So at that point, that's very interesting because I knew you had some background. I didn't know you owned your own shop. So similar to me, where I got in the business doing post closing, I got to see it from the end and reverse engineer it. So I saw what underwriting mistakes were made, what processing mistakes were made, what issues there were in order to get a loan sold off of the line, the warehouse lines that they were on. And I got to really see a full picture so that when I started originating, I was able to answer all the tough questions. When they were like, why do I need a second year of tax returns? I'm like, well, do you know that they average the Schedule C because of XYZ, right? And it's because I had put out fires on the post-closing side. For you, being an owner, having your own shop, how much of an effect has that had for you since then? And how much did you learn about the back end of the business by being a broker owner?
Great questions again. So again, with that entrepreneurial spirit and being on the broker side, you can really have control over your thinking, your own thing, your marketing. I had a lot of choice, in different lenders, and just having all that flexibility was really great for me. I didn't get to learn the side that you learned on. I just learned the front. I learned sales, how to knock on doors, how to, work with real estate agents. That's been the core of my business from the beginning. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot different now. I used to run around with, blue sheets of paper with with rates on it and, a stack of them. Things are a little different now. But yeah, so I learned, again, I was, working with this guy for probably, I don't know, 4 years. And then I applied for my license and then went on my own. And it was a great experience, just kind of like, being able to, build the computer system and like having Compass work in one place for like different branch offices and trying to stay in front of technology at that point, because this is years ago. And, it was like probably when I opened my own company, it was like 1998. I think I started in like 93 or 4 or something like that.
So that's well before, this is like during the internet boom, and Calyx and Compass were like leap years ahead. So you really got into the business and learned it from the old typewriter almost into Excel and Word, and then using like systems that really help you progress. So you have kind of seen all the ups and downs. Was there a point while owning your own shop? So that means you owned it in the late 90s for a good solid 10 years until the
Yep.
collapse.
Yep.
Was there a point where there was like a major financial stress for you where you were the owner and took on some crazy stress like, oh my God, I have this loan. And if it doesn't get bought by this lender, I'm on the hook for tens of thousands of dollars. Were there any financial burdens that you had as a broker owner that you recall that maybe brought on a little more stress?
No, once we brokered that file out, it was gone. We didn't. As it came closer to 2008, did QC some of those old files, but it never had a financial burden. So no, I wasn't ever pressured by having that kind of responsibility of a buyback or anything like that. I mean, we had some early payment default, not default, early pay, EPOs.
Early payoff.
Yeah, if they refinanced within a certain amount of time, but I mean, we were making it up on the other side or whatever the case at that time may have been. So sure. And yeah, like you said, I'll tell you, and I'm sure this will come up again, but like I've been doing this so long that used to handwrite applications, we would handwrite them. Like you'd get a stack of 1003s, ordered in. The original Gangster was like a full thing, so it was like double long. Go to clients' homes and fill that thing out, right there, and because it needed to be signed and with a pen, and it was needed to be all original. So yeah, it's been a
But
while.
walk me through that. So if I hear what you're saying, which is great, and we'll circle back to this, but in
Sure.
your own words, you're basically saying like the broker model, which you did for a very long time, one of the major advantages of it is you are truly an in-between. You are a broker between two, and you do not, as a broker owner, take on any financial responsibility outside of fraud, which God forbid any of us should be ever involved with. But from a financial standpoint, that must have been really rewarding knowing so many people during the collapse, lost millions of dollars, lost tens of thousands, had staff, had all this other stuff. And it sounds like, and if you want to tell me a little more, the broker model was amazing that you almost got to like shut it down overnight. Like because you're in the middle, what you did, you got paid for. And when you didn't do it anymore, it just stopped getting paid. What a stress reliever not to have that hanging over your head.
Sure. I mean, that was I was brought up in the business as a broker, and yeah, there wasn't any, financial pressures of having to, buy back loans or like, when it was gone and sold and funded, it was gone. And that was it. So yeah, I didn't have any worries about anything coming back. Again, in '08, maybe I was worried, but like, that was a different climate at that particular time. But again, they had nothing on me. I was just, here's the application, nice and clear. This is where we sent it. And, that was the end of it for us. So, I mean, we ran credit reports a little bit differently back then, like, cause they were so much less money. So like, it wasn't that big of a burden. So we wouldn't charge the customer straight away. We'd bill them or do it as a courtesy. But again, they were like $3, at that time, so it wasn't a big deal. But yeah, as financial burdens from lenders, no, I didn't have, and it was very relieving, and I didn't have that worry.
So transition from there. So now the collapse comes. You
Yeah.
shut down the brokerage. What do you do? Do you stay in mortgages? Where do you go? Walk me
Yeah.
through the next part of your career.
Man, look, I saw that financial collapse coming a mile away. I knew it was coming. The programs were just can't do 580, 100% financing. You just can't. That doesn't work. So I knew this. I smelled it coming. But at that time, I grew the company to a pretty good size. So the hardest part for me, I tried to hang on because I knew it was going to end. I knew it was going to end, but brokers were way out of favor. In the marketplace, but I still tried. I held on for dear life, but it's like, you got to cut the weight, and it's like, okay, now we're down to, from 4 offices down to 2 offices, and now we're down to a small office, and you have to drop the processors and you have to let those people know. And, unfortunately you had one of the girls or ladies that were working with me at the time was pregnant and like, had to go to Cobra, that's where the stress had come in for me. Yeah. That's So the transition is I held on and then moved over to how to go to the bank. Brokers were just out of favor. It was very difficult to get a loan. It was very difficult to find even the banks were just slipping, falling apart, going out of business. And it was just time. I couldn't sustain anymore. I couldn't pay the salaries. So I went to a credit union to start off with, just a local small Bethpage credit union. I worked there for a little while. It was great. We had good conforming rates. That was fine, but you're working for a company now.
So how long were you there, and where'd you transition out of there?
Yeah, sure. So, wow, this is great bringing all this up. It brings back a lot of good memories. Bethpage was great, sure, hang your hat on the good rates with the credit union. But that's when MSAs started to also become flavorful, let's say. So I got recruited over to DE Capital, which at the time was Douglas Elliman's preferred lender. So I took that opportunity, and I spent a bunch of time. It was Wells Fargo based at the time, so spent a lot of time. Now I'm under a Wells Fargo umbrella, so that's a whole other.
What years were these?
Excuse me.
What years were these?
It has to be like 2008, 9, 10, 11, 2011, something like this, 2012, something like this.
Yeah, because that's probably where our paths probably might have crossed back in New York, because I was at Wells until 2000, the end of mid-2010. And we had the Douglas Elliman relationship at that time through Wells Fargo.
And it was a little later, sure.
Yeah, so probably where our paths originally crossed. I was in Queens at the time. You were probably Long Island. So I remember a funny story. So did you work under the DE team, or did you work for like the Wells Fargo guys?
I was DE. I was DE Capital. Yeah. Bill Persky.
We had there were two Joes there. There was a Joe Carrillo and there was a Joe Persky.
It was actually Bill Persky. Joe Persky was the originator.
Correct. So Joe's the one I knew, right?
Yes, sir.
And then Bill was the manager?
Yes, of the office in Babylon I worked out of. Well, if that's where the DE office was, yeah.
I hate to give him too much credit, but I had gotten there and I was running a joint venture for them. The same way they had one with DE Capital for Douglas Elliman, I was running one for Century 21. And that's where I got most of my business from. I had a huge Century 21 office, the biggest on the East Coast that I was running.
Yeah.
And we had a team of people that worked there. And I remember, so I go to these meetings and I'm sitting there and I'm running one office for Century 21. And we did a lot of business. And these guys like Joe and Bill and John were like all show up to these meetings. They were running like much bigger offices all over Long Island. So it's a little humbling. Like you're at these tables and they're like, well, how much production did you guys do this month? And I was like, we did like 30 million, which is a lot for a month. And they were like, oh, we did like 400 million this month. I was like, wow. So I became friendly with him, the branch manager, and he would ride me all the time. Being an Orthodox Jew, he would always be like, well, what are you going to do for kosher? And what are you going to do for this? And he was always like needling away at me. But he taught me a really important lesson. I was pretty young at the time. I remember one time we went to this like volleyball get together, like some sort of sales conference or whatever, and he was being a little cold. And I went up to him and I said, hey, you're not going to bust my chops today? And he goes, oh, something's going on or whatever. He's like, I'm just dealing with something at home, whatever. And I said, oh, because I was starting to get nervous. And he said, it's a life lesson for you. He goes, buddy, when I stop making fun of you, when I stop liking you. Because if I walk into a room and see you and I want to make fun of you, that means I'm thinking of you. Otherwise, you're irrelevant to me. Now, anyone listening to this from California would be like, that's rude, that's mean. But I think you would get it. Coming from Long Island, that's kind of like love comes with sarcasm.
Yeah, it does.
And we stayed friends for quite a long time. But it was an interesting time to be at a big company like Wells Fargo at that time. And then everyone kind of branched off from there. So walk me through, where do you go from there? What's next on the Bob Hilsby train of mortgages?
Yeah, so I think Douglas Elliman went through another one of those, we don't want to do this anymore. And then my whole team ended up moving basically from there. We went to Citibank. MSAs are still in play at that time. And we started working with the coach realtors. We weren't involved with the Douglas Elliman anymore, moving over the transition to Citibank, but a lot of the team went to Citibank. So and then I was at Citibank for a number of years, got a little branch experience, they plant you in a branch. Like I didn't have to go there but once a week or twice a week. So that was fine. But again, MSA, and then now I have relationships my own. I have Elliman agents that are still using me. And then, we have these new coach relationships. So yeah, so that was a good time. But, again, working for Citibank, you're working for Citibank.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because not everyone here understands what that means. So what were some of the challenges versus in the broker world when it says that you're at Citibank? Because Citibank is a little bit of a white box, and Citibank does have sometimes the lowest rate or some relationship pricing. But as an originator, where did you feel trapped in any way being at Citibank versus the autonomy that you have as a broker?
Yeah, those were very hard lessons for me to learn, going through Wells, going through Citibank. You can only answer. You can't have any creative mind. You can't come up with a marketing idea. It's impossible basically to get anything, idea wise approved. It was even difficult to get a flyer, like an open house flyer or something along those lines. It was really like an act of Congress. So, I mean, yeah, the benefits were sure. We had, relationship pricing, fine, great. And it works. And that was good. And I leveraged it, and, worked with a certain clientele, but not everybody's going for that. And certainly not everybody, on Long Island needed jumbo loans, and not everybody had, so many reserves all the time. So good experience, Nine Bank, underwriting's underwriting. And, if
Right. So not to focus as much on Citibank, but for you, I'm just saying you had 10 plus years as a broker,
yeah,
had all that autonomy and freedom. And
yeah,
obviously we know the pains of Citibank, but for you, what was that like, that transition from the broker world to bank? And then did that force you to be like, I got to get out of here? So give me a little bit of like the difference in the models, not necessarily what Citibank is, but like how that transition was for you.
sure. I touched on it. It was hard. It was almost a rude awakening or a rude sleep. And I say that because you can't do anything. You can't be creative. It took all that flair that, I felt I had. And, being a broker, just being able to make decisions, or, hire a marketing company to help out with, flyers or agent outreach or anything, or even, you're going to laugh, but like emails new. So it's like, okay, let's, create an email campaign. And it's like, oh, at the bank, you can't do that. Or it needs to be scrubbed, or you can only do that once a month. And that's frustrating. When I was a broker, I was able to control, again, outreach, or just simple creative ideas like what's next, do to get more business. I was in the bank world, I was in a very tight box, and I didn't like that. I don't like that in general. But again, it's this is the time where we went from the GFE to the CD, and there was tons of oversight.
Rules and regulations. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where we came out really strong. So interestingly, so you're feeling like really, really trapped in that world. And people talk about this all the time, where when you work for a big bank, whatever those institutions are, that brand has a tremendous price tag to it. That brand is worth a lot of money, respectfully. And
Respect.
there's a lot of money behind it. So you always feel like a little restricted from the fact that you're representing the Citibank brand, and almost like it's an honor for you to have an email at Citibank or these institutions. And will you protect the brand? So it's going to exist with or without you, versus in the broker world, many people, you're, promoting yourself and you're marketing yourself, and clients feel like they're talking to the person in charge. Did you go through any of that when you were back? So now you leave Citibank, and from there, did you go back to an IMB, the broker world? Like, what'd you do after the big banks? What was your next transition out of big banks?
Yeah, so still stayed in banking. I went to Bank of America for a number of years.
Then after that,
So what happened was I was doing all that business on Long Island, and I wanted to get off Long Island. I wanted to move into New York City. The MSAs fell apart. That's when, at Citibank, all the MSAs fell apart, and Citibank like raised our rates. So we had nothing at that point. So the whole team once again moves over to a Bank of America, and, they had the Wimlows, the wealth management lending officers. So went down that path a little bit, and I was now in New York City. So selling a different product. And yeah, same thing, you're protecting the brand. And yes, I'm so honored to have, the Bank of America email address. Yeah, that's true. And it's real. and that's where you are, and protect that brand. And, look, that was good while it was okay. And they started with like record a call, through Salesforce. They're recording our calls, and,
Yeah, and
they're
those times can be like really aggressive. So then you leave the bank. What, in other words, where'd you go after all that bank pain, as you're referring to? What was your next step?
Yeah, sure. So then basically what happened was is I stayed at the bank for a while, and to fast forward, that's when you and I connected. I didn't want to be at the bank anymore. There's just way too much opportunity, too many programs available, too many different choices, not to dig into that. You don't have much of a product set at the banks. I'm a broker by heart. I like doing a lot of my own thing. I like coming up with good ideas. I like discussing with you what's the next best strategy, or what can we do? What can we implement next to increase our business? And I wanted to be here back in the broker space really bad. Not really bad, but I wanted to be in that space in order to build my business. I'm fresh here in California, only about a year and a half, and just trying to rebuild. And I have every tool available to me. I have every product, every program that I could basically ask for.
So you have a ton of experience, been doing this for a while now, and come from a real estate background, learned from a very young age through your mom and just basic experience. You've done sales, you've done rentals, you've kind of seen every aspect of this business. And today, when you sit as a broker, do you feel like the horizon for next year and the year forward, like, do you feel you're at the right spot, and why? Where do you think like the future is for you in mortgages, and why this is probably the best platform?
So, I thought about this time and time again, and this is a very easy decision for me. I love the independence. I like having my own brand. I like having a plethora of products available to me. I enjoy having these different lenders. Everybody has their own little neat niche, even if they're just a conforming bank. Everybody's a little different. So it's really great having many options to choose from. It's very great to be able to do my own marketing. It's great to set up my own tech stack if I want to. It's great. I don't think I don't think the banks, you can use AI. I mean, it's going to be years before they see that again. And it's an integral part of our business at this point. It needs to be implemented. We have to have those strategies. And I want that. I always enjoyed being in the front of technology. I don't want to be behind it. Take my own business and be in control of my business, and not like have my last customer in some pool. So I want control. Maybe I'm not a control freak, but I want control.
No, that's a very strong statement and very wise. Let me ask you this. So you've been doing sales for a while,
Yeah.
and you know a lot of real estate agents. How have you consistently maintained those relationships? How do you grow those relationships? Someone new to the business is like, "Hey, how do I get my feet started? What are you using in terms of AI tools?" Give me a little bit of background on how do you originate your business, your relationships with your realtors, and how are you seeing that AI is helping you be more efficient with that?
Great question. So AI is a behemoth of a thing. I'm learning how to use it and implement it and get it into strategies. I actually use it to help me answer those exact questions.
Give me an example when you say that. Like, what would you run through there for anyone that's listening?
All right, so someone looking to get their feet wet and create relationships out in the field with realtors, financial planners, accountants. You start off with conversations. Those conversations, even if you just take a couple of the key pieces and jot notes down along the way during the conversation. I mean, heck, I even think you can record these things now and upload them directly to uh, ChatGPT, and it can decipher like what type of personality those people are. It can give you follow-up scripts on how to follow up with them. So I'm learning, but these are just, some of the tips of the iceberg. It's like I set up a little separate chat for each individual agent that I'm either A, working with, or B, trying to work with. I put in their hobbies. I put in their likes, their dislikes. I just tried this conversation thing, but I'm not there yet, uploading the conversation into You go out to lunch and you record it or something, or have a conversation, a telephone call that can be recorded. You can upload these things and it's actually going to break down their personality type. So it's super powerful, and you can implement it on your calendar. It can tell you when to follow up, what the best timing could be to follow up with certain people. It can help you with calendars. I mean, it's basically endless. It's pretty amazing.
That's really helpful, and I'm learning from you, even from this today, how important that is for me to start implementing that a little more, because you're right. It's kind of like having a full-time coach that it's not a personality. It's not a person on the other side. It's someone that just wants to help you succeed, is what I'm hearing you say. And like, it probably feels a little vulnerable, and that's probably why people like myself have been a little shy to it. But from what I hear you saying, like, just get out there and put yourself out there, because it's not a human on the other side, so you can't really be embarrassed, right?
Yeah, well, hey, look, part of our environment that you and I and the team, these conversations are different than when we were at the bank. We discuss on meetings on how to implement these, or wow, that's a great idea. Let me try that. And that's the forward thinking that I like. It's like, how can we utilize these tools that are now available to us to increase business and to learn together as a team. And these are strategies that you can have when you work at, one of the IMBs or even at the big bank. You're in their box. So this is something that I enjoy, and the learning curve and experience is great. I mean, heck, I put things in about myself. I'm like, oh, I didn't do this today. And it's like, that's okay. But tomorrow we have to double up on a couple things. So it's really like you say, a coach. I have myself in there now just to keep me on target, and, activities for the day. Hey, I like making my calls at 10 o'clock. Okay, Robert, Bob, we'll make those calls from 10 to 11:30 tomorrow. That's fine. So it's great.
Love that. Is there anything, so let's talk about, you have some hobbies on the side, as we know. You're an
Yes, sir.
active guy, you do golf, right? You play a lot of different sports and stuff. Is there anything in your personal life that you think is an anchor into your business life that really helps you, from discipline to structure, or something that's in your personal life that is a tool that you use in your business life as well?
That's yes. I'll have to say that, like, over the course of the last year or so, I've done a lot of soul searching over this last year. And something that I've absolutely learned about myself is, the way that I want to be is I want to be stable, and I want to do it through consistency. So the things that I do, I just want to be consistent with. I'm not trying to knock over 100 pins. I want to knock over one pin at a time. But I want to do that consistently. I want to do it daily. And when I get one pin down, then we can go to two. And then when you go, we can build off of that. So yeah, so my hobbies, like, yeah, Sunday is morning golf day. So, I try to hit some balls to clear my mind during the week. And I do boxing. So that gets me, moving and sweating, and, again, just trying to keep a good headspace, so this way everything else comes from there. Eat healthy, try to take care of myself now, and through exercise and eating properly and doing consistent things on a daily basis. That's how I'm going to find the stability that I'm looking for.
Well, I want to round out with one last segment or question here for you. So I'm going to give you two choices to choose from, or pick them both. We have plenty of time. So number one would be, do you have anything fun, or funny, I should say, that you've experienced in the business, or a really funny story to share with anyone that's listening, so they get to know you a little better? That's one. Number two is, what's your favorite book that's had the biggest impression upon you throughout your life? So either or both. Just curious if you
Sure.
have.
Let's go with a funny story first,
All right.
because I love the books, but we'll talk about that next. So, look, we're living in this tech age now, and, we don't really like face to face with our clients anymore. And, I've been doing this a while, and I started, explaining that we used to have to handwrite applications. So we used to go to the client's house to do this. So I was just getting started. I got through those 60 days. I got my first, appointment, fine. I go out to the client's house, meet them at, just past dinner time. It's, 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. I get there. I set up my briefcase with file folders, already funny. I pull out the 1003, and we're in the dining room of the house. They sit me down. I'm on the side. They're on both sides of me. When you go through the questions, it's like, answer, pity questions. And then it's like you get into the application and I start writing the application. I'm sitting at a wood dining table. So I'm sitting there writing the application. Now, keep in mind, I have a pretty strong hand when I write down things. So I'm getting through the application. We make it to, I get to the end and they have to sign. So it used to be, okay, the paperwork. So I pick up the application and I turn it around. I look down and the entire application is carved into their wood table.
Oh my God. Well,
The
at
whole
least that was
thing.
good for them. They'll never forget any of their information.
No, it's there. I'm like, oh, it's just chiseled right into your dining room table now.
Wow. That must have been an awkward position to be in at that time.
Oh my God, I'm wet behind the ears and this is going on. So
That's
like,
hysterical.
whatever, as a courtesy, I get back to the office and I let, I told, people that this is what happened. And as a courtesy, we ended up like having to send it to a wood restorer and get fixed.
Wow.
And this is like $1,000, $1,000. And we're talking, this is like a $240,000 mortgage at the time,
Wow.
So
That's funny. That is a
yeah,
great, great, great story.
yeah.
The high level, most impressionable book that you read that shaped your life or anything that you would recommend to anyone?
Motivational books and, self-help books and sales books. I've read them all. One that I just will touch on quickly that I don't forget is The One Thing. That was a great book. But I am currently reading, it's Life's Greatest Lessons. It's a super easy read, but it's getting back to basics. It goes through everything. It's, shake hands, say thank you, be a nice person, tell the truth. And it got me back on plane. It's Hal Urban and it's Life's Greatest Lessons. It's my most recent read. It's a really quick, easy read, but it level set me. It got me back to basics and I needed that.
I love it. Well, thank you, Bob, for making the time today. I really appreciated this. The point of this podcast is the most mindset. So it's something
Yes.
that I have really zoned in on. How do I focus and what's the right mindset to have to be successful in this business? How to feel valued, how to find people like yourself that were undervalued at a big bank and bring them to this platform where they get to be free and do what they do. So you are a great example to all of that. Someone who has the right mindset, who stays positive throughout all the trials, tribulations, and challenges that we have on a daily basis. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And Michael, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, it's been a good experience. Thank you.
Of course.